Welcome to the HR Empowerment Podcast, where we will uncover strategies and new insights from HR professionals who discuss up-to-date regulations, best practices, and the most pressing topics like diversity and equity, leadership, dealing with difficult situations, and much more that affect your bottom line and business. Thanks for joining us.
Hey everybody, Wendy Sellers here, the HR lady. We are here today to talk about the aging workforce and safety concerns. I'm sure many of you that are listening have the exact same questions. And so recently I was speaking at an event and I had somebody contact me afterwards saying, hey, I have questions about aging workforce and the safety concerns. And I said, you know what, why don't we address this on the podcast, because everyone else probably has the exact same questions. I could tell you, I just turned 50, so I'm now into the aging workforce, and there are safety concerns as well. Fortunately, I mostly work remote, so I don't have too many safety concerns. But with that said, I do want to introduce you to our special guest here. Welcome to the show, Zoe, and I'm going to pronounce your name very slowly, Zoe Ridenour from is it K-West at Quest Group, and you are the HR manager there. Welcome.
Yes, I ironically have the two hardest names, first and last name, and then also company names, so it never offends me at all.
Hey, thank you so much for bringing up this concern. Tell us just a little bit about yourself and how long have you been in the HR role and with your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the HR manager. I started with Quest Group about 5 years ago while I was still attending college as an intern. And throughout my time at Quest Group, I've worked my way up from an intern to overseeing the HR department. We're a civil construction company based out of Ohio. I live in Virginia, so we work over 40 states and have about almost 400 employees, and we're growing pretty quickly. So I'm constantly learning new things and having new questions brought up to me that I thought you were a great person to talk to about those.
Well, thank you so much. Wow, that is a ton of states. You are probably inundated with trying to just understand all the different laws.
Yeah, so alone the states and then also just the HR world in general only have been in it for 5 years. Thankfully, I have an amazing team, to a coordinator and then an assistant who helped me out, and then just amazing support from the leadership. So I'm someone, I'm not afraid to say I don't know something, and then I go research it, and I think that's gained me a lot of respect in my time that I've been in HR.
Yeah, it's funny, when I was younger, I'm a high D personality on the personality scale and a go-getter, and I never wanted to say I don't know. And now I say it a lot. I don't know, but you know what? Actually, that helps other people say it, to say I don't know the answer. I need help. Or even better, I made a mistake and this is what I learned from it. But I have to say, just kudos to you for having an amazing leadership team, because working just in 2 states sometimes is so complicated, never mind across all those states. So congratulations to you. So you're in construction, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So we are a dirt contractor essentially. We do basically everything horizontal and down. We don't do any like buildings.
Yeah, but construction alone definitely does have an aging workforce. In manufacturing, a lot of industries that were, something that maybe 40 years ago, you just automatically got a job there if you had experience or not. And then they had great training. And then I think, our world changed a little bit and people said, I don't want manual labor jobs as much anymore. And so that means it's harder to get younger individuals. I used to be when I was in corporate HR, I was in architectural engineering, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, construction, and it was a lot easier to find even people from college, and now it's not. Talk to us about that. Where do you even find your people now?
Yeah, so I will say having work all across the nation is definitely a blessing and a curse when it comes to recruiting. So we do have 5 active offices right now: Ohio, Virginia, North Carolina, and then we also have training sites in Ohio and Kentucky. So our field people, which I would refer to as laborers, our operators, concrete, people like that, they travel at 90%. So our taste of what we're looking for is very specific on top of the skill set. But I would say our biggest blessing is our referral program. We started that years back, before I had actually started. And that has been an amazing pipeline for construction talent. Like I would say, if a construction company doesn't have that, you can definitely justify the cost. So you can reach out to me. I'd help you kind of show you the numbers and stuff, because they want to get their friend's job. They want to get their family in construction. They have, cousins, even their sons and daughters. We have family members that work together. So that's definitely been a blessing. And then just the way that they network when they travel, then they bring in people and we give them a referral bonus for that once people stay.
I love that. Yeah. So, folks, make sure that you are connecting with Zoe. I'll make sure that her LinkedIn profile is in, or other contact information is in the notes of this podcast. It's super important to understand referrals. That's so kudos to you for doing that, because I mean, who the heck doesn't want to work with their friend, right? Now, I do want you to be careful a little bit, folks, of
Mhm.
not only just hiring their friends, because then you can kind of get into some kind of unconscious bias training or unconscious bias decisions as well. And so check out all of the trainings that are on the Aurora Training Advantage website, because there's so much information that you can get from the experts on our podcast like Zoe, or on the trainings as well. So with that said, I did want to share a stat real quick about the aging workforce. Unfortunately, in this month of 2025, there were 37.9 million workers aged 55 and up. So that makes up almost 25% of all employed people over the age of 16. And that's from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So just think about that. Almost a quarter of our individuals that are in the workforce are over 55. Now, many people are working longer because they have to, because of the economy, or because they didn't save for retirement, and or just because life is expensive. What are we going to do when those 25%, those almost 40 million workers, retire? Just going to magically go, doop, there we go. AI is now going to build things and move dirt around. I don't think so.
Yeah, I can't see that happening. And that's exactly where we're hitting, because we're just over 20 years old as a business. So we have those individuals that built our company that we really, really want to capture their knowledge, treat them with respect, show them that we care about them, while also trying to figure out what's our game plan when they want to leave this company. We don't want to make them feel like they owe us to stay. We want to be able to help them with their transition whenever they decide that is, because also it's not our decision, it's theirs as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important also to the workforce that you currently have, regardless of their age. You may need to make some of them supervisors and managers, so that, or even if it's just a training person, so that they are taking all of their experience and training these newbies, regardless of their age, that are coming into the industry, and saying, hey, let me get all this information out of my head. The thing that drives me nuts is we just promote people to managers when they don't necessarily need to be a manager. They need to be a trainer. And or we promote them to managers and we don't actually give them training. What are your thoughts on that, Zoe?
Yeah, so that was something when we met, that was a big topic of your presentation. And it was definitely something that I've been recognizing not only at my company, just, talking to HR colleagues and things at conferences. It's like, yeah, we all have child managers, basically, where we're like, okay, you don't really know what you're doing, and that's okay. So that was something that my company was talking about. I would say beginning of this year, we realized like we need like an HR program for our managers. And so hearing you speak, you gave a lot of topics that could be covered in that type of like manager track. So that's definitely a goal for our company this year, is like we need to put something together that's like some prerequisites of if you do X, Y, and Z trainings, then you can start to be considered for management. And then you have tracks as you work your way up, even into senior management. Because I will admit, we don't have that right now. We train people, as things happen, I try to
Yep.
help them the best I can, but we don't have any formalized program, and it's definitely needed.
Yeah, and you're not alone. A lot of companies are just winging it because we don't have enough time in the day. We don't have enough people to do this. And so, folks, please make sure you do get some kind of training system. Aurora Training Advantage has memberships. If you're in the HR and management space, you can do so many things. And in fact, I just looked on Aurora's website. And I'm a trainer, obviously, for them. And we have a training coming up about how to go from buddy to boss. And so that's something that you can definitely, I would suggest to our listeners, get people to, watch or participating in training like that before they accept the role, right? So they can go, you know what, never mind, I don't want to do this, versus they take it just for the money. And then they come back and say, I don't want this at all. And so I'm going to leave the company altogether. And then the other thing I did want to talk about in a few minutes is just we'll get into, talking about when somebody's physically maxing out, maybe in a heavy duty role. But the number one thing that I see, I'm an HR consultant. My clients are all size businesses, but most of them are small businesses and they don't have HR. So I teach somebody there how to be HR. But start just with a job description. Drafting a legally sound job description is so important, especially today with everything that's going on with DEI and accessibility and belonging and immigration and so many other things. And so there is a training on the Aurora Training Advantage website about drafting legally sound job descriptions as well. So I definitely encourage everybody to check that out. All right. So let's jump into the meat of this conversation today. We're talking about aging workforce and safety concerns. What are your concerns, Zoe?
Yeah, so I would say for our company, it comes down to looking at the spread of knowledge across our different roles and recognizing that, like I said earlier, we don't want to make that decision for someone, but we want our team to feel like if they want to step into a different capacity, whether that's reduce time at work, step into a different role, use their knowledge another way, that we've created a path for others to step in behind them. I don't feel like in every role we've created that ability specifically in our safety sensitive roles, and that's something we're realizing is really pertinent for our team.
Yeah, absolutely. So my advice to you would be, number one is start with a solid job analysis. Like I said, the job description. And I'll make sure I put these all in the podcast notes, folks, so you'll be able to copy it from there. But the job analysis is down to, mapping out each role's essential physical demands. What are the lifting thresholds and the reality of it? I see so many job ads or job descriptions that say must lift up to 50 pounds. And I'm like, do they really do that? And it's like, yeah, once a year. Like, okay, well, that's not an essential responsibility. That's a non-essential responsibility. And if you are putting in things that aren't realistic, you're ruling out maybe people with disabilities as well, that they just say, no, I'm not going to go there. So make sure you are starting out with a solid job analysis, lifting thresholds, do they have to climb, balancing, and then involve frontline supervisors and veteran workers so you don't miss any unofficial tasks. Often, so many of the job descriptions and job analysis is shoved onto HR, but we're not the experts in that role. We're the experts in making sure the job description looks pretty, right?
Yeah, and getting it up on the job board. So yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And so, and folks, I know you've probably heard this from me before, but I am huge on committees or project teams. So create a project team or a committee, and it could be temporary. It could just be like, hey, we're only get together for 3 months and we're going to have this committee look at all the jobs in this department and really go through it with a fine tooth comb. And they don't have to be supervisors. They could be expert employees that are saying, I'm not a supervisor, I'm not a manager, but I've been doing this for 20 years. And I can tell you what is really required for this role, and that the job description actually is not accurate or hasn't been accurate in a very long time. And so get the experts involved. That's why we hire them, right?
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that I would say is, if you are, again, focused on safety and an aging workforce, is I want you to take away the word age and frame it around ability, not age. So using neutral language like, maybe doing surveys or analysis, and or you may need to get an expert involved, internal or external, to ask current employees and or candidates, can you safely perform these tasks? Task one, task two, task three, versus are you too old for this? Because now you're going to be getting into discrimination on age, because I have to tell you, there are people that are way older than me and can lift things over their head. And, I could barely lift anything. I've never had really good arm strength. So even when I was in my 20s. And so, folks, make sure you are framing this around ability, not age. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and don't just target new hires. So don't just target older people, and don't just target new hires. You may want to be rolling out an entire plan to say we're going to be analyzing everybody's skills, and this could take a very long time, because we don't want to take everybody off the job right away. So this could be like a 3 to 6 month project. The first 3 months just setting it up, the next 3 months of actually testing everybody and saying, maybe we've been hiring the wrong way. And we need to make sure that we're validating this information. The next part of, doing like a mobility/fitness for duty program. The funny thing is, Zoe, we often do fitness for duty when somebody's coming back to work from maybe like an injury, an illness, or a workers' comp injury. But we really, especially with an aging workforce, in safety sensitive positions, we should be doing fitness for duty all the time. Maybe we do, twice a year. Everybody has to go through a fitness for duty program, because let's face it, if somebody does have a personal injury and we don't know about it, why would we? They didn't get injured at work. They might be hiding it, right? Because they're like, I don't want my manager to know I got injured at home, because I might lose my job. And then they may then get actually injured at work, and now workers' compensation has to cover it. So you may want to consider also doing, fitness for duty tests on a regular basis. And maybe they're kind of like, you draw a name out of a hat, and then eventually by the end of the year, or a year, 12-month program, everybody does have to go through it. Kind of like drug screening, right? When we do the random pop-ups and we just pull somebody's name out of a hat. You don't really pull it out of a hat, folks, but you understand what I'm saying. So speaking of that, let me ask you this, and I think I know the answer just because of the industry. And do you also do random drug screenings?
Yes, we do. So with our company, we're a federal contractor. So we also have we have CDL drivers. So we have the FMCSA, and then certain clients will fall into other testing pools that they're required to do testing. So since we're working with them, then we also have to add in additional testing. And our HR team does manage all of the random pre-employment drug testing as well.
Excellent, excellent. So now you just need to add in there, fitness for duty. They're also called functional capacity evaluations, FCE, or mobility screens. Honestly, I'm not certified or licensed to do that. I am not an occupational therapist or a certified functional capacity evaluations, but there's a lot of companies that you can partner with to do that. And so that they are helping you with the fitness to work, duty tests, or return to work if there was an injury or just a personal illness too. So little thing also to our listeners is, as you're hearing this here, we're putting a lot on HR and hiring right now. We need to train our managers on all this. We need to make sure all of our managers at least know this terminology, and at least be able to say, hey, I see something, I need to say something. Now I need to run to HR because I saw my employee stumble. I saw my employee, or I heard my employee saying that they had an injury from the weekend, and now they're in a position that requires a lot of heavy lifting or something like that. So managers and supervisors or team leads, if you have them, even project managers, they need to be your eyes and your ears out there on the floor, or on the work, in the projects, to say, I heard something, I saw something, help. What do I do?
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're thinking about with this training program for our managers, is even like along those lines of like the basics of FMLA. Like we do have individuals, when they hear things, we make sure that they're aware of it, but more formalized, of like, these are your keywords that you're looking for, just as you would reasonable suspicion drug testing, which we train them on.
Yeah, and speaking of, like injuries at work, injuries and illnesses, their fatal work injuries are actually, unfortunately, very common too. And the last stat that I have was, I think, 2024, 55 to 64-year-olds accounted for 20.6% of fatal work injuries, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So, that's a huge number. Again, I want you to focus on ability, folks, not just age, but do know that, the statistics do show that 55 to 64-year-olds account for 20%, 20.6% of fatal work injuries. But look at the other side. That means 80% are under 55. So again, this is about ability, not just age. So understand that. Now, there are also, non-fatal injuries, and it does say that if you are 16 to 19 years old, they have a huge rate of injuries. Let's face it, they're new in the workplace, right?
Especially if you're looking at my industry of construction, even manufacturing, like they've been in school sitting at a desk, going through these
Right.
things. Luckily, sometimes there's trade schools where they're getting exposed to it younger. They were put on a farm or something like that growing up, but majority of them are just like, I saw that you can do construction. I want to do construction. So you're
Yep.
starting from the ground up of them not knowing a lot of these safety techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's super important if when you're hiring anybody, regardless of age, but do know, again, ability, experience. If I'll say 19, because hopefully you're not hiring a 16-year-old for construction, but
Yes,
let's just say 19. It's probably one of their first jobs, or their first job in a safety sensitive position. And
Mhm.
so having a training program is so, so, so important. Making sure that you are doing, these mobility screens, functional capacity evaluations, and then understanding, above all, that you need to have some kind of written policy, right? Some kind of policy that says, all right, you were injured, or you didn't pass our assessments. Now what? Do you terminate them, or do you put them on light duty? Do you make them a trainer, but they're not actually allowed to touch anything? And so the way it has been really since the pandemic, probably even before the pandemic, is it's so hard to attract and retain qualified workers. So let's not toss them out because of their age or the fact that they failed a safety assessment. Let's see if we can use their experience for something else. And then if you can't, then go to the next process. But please, folks, make sure that you do have crystal clear written guidelines, of publishing maybe a short fitness for duty policy that spells out who gets screened, all incumbents, everybody who's coming in, all applicants. If you choose to do maybe once or twice a year screenings for everybody in safety sensitive positions, which means you need to do that job analysis, look at your job description, and maybe qualify, okay, these job descriptions are safety sensitive, these ones are not, or these job descriptions over here are slightly safety sensitive, so they get, maybe a smaller version of the fitness for duty, at least once a year. Make sure your fitness for duty policy also spells out exactly when you're going to do some kind of fitness for duty assessment: pre-hire, post-injury, periodic, based on risk. And then finally, the consequences. What happens if they don't meet it? what if they don't pass the fitness for duty? What's going to happen? And make sure that your supervisors know this, so there's zero mystery there. I find it shocking that we often forget to tell our supervisors how to handle things, and it's like, no, they're mini HR. They need to know what's going on. Employees aren't coming to us, right? So Zoe, they're going to their supervisor going, hey, something happened this week and I injured my arm, but I don't want to tell HR. The supervisor needs to know, well, too bad. We're telling HR, we're telling safety, or, the injury person, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially in the capacities of, boots on the ground jobs. It's like they do want to protect their people. So when they're not aware of how to handle what's brought to them, it simply is they're going to protect that person and try to be like, oh, well, I'll just put them on this job today while they say that their back hurts. When in reality, it's like, how long is their back actually hurt? Because they never told you about it. They're just telling you about it today because maybe they're a little bit worn down and they don't want to do that other task today.
Right, exactly. So it's very, very important to understand that supervisors they do need to know. It's not, oh, I'll tell you when you need to know. No, they need to know what's going on. They need to be mini HR, and not, at least feel comfortable going to the human resource department if you even have an HR department. Otherwise, it could probably be an ops person or something like that. Another item that I was thinking of about just talking about, the aging workforce and safety sensitive positions, and again, fitness to duty, is what about offering voluntary like wellness support? Do we have on-site stretch and warm-up stations, or at least plaques or posters to not everybody knows how to stretch. Not everybody knows, like, hey, you should be doing things and doing warm up before you get into heavy lifting. Or do you have anything like that?
Yeah, so our company, we call it the 6-step process every morning, which is basically in construction is kind of like your morning safety meeting, getting everybody on the same page. And we do stretch and flex every morning. And we push it very heavily because of the nature of their jobs. They're getting in and out of trenches, they're climbing ladders, they're using hand tools, they're getting in and out of even just the equipment. So being really, really thorough with the stretch and flex. And then, we always recommend that they do it before they go sit in their car and drive after they've been moving around and then their muscle gets all tight.
Right. I love it. And then also, folks, how about, it's like ergonomic toolkits. We focus on that for office people, but we need to make sure we're focusing on that for people that are doing a physical labor. And then you may even want to consider subsidized gym membership so that it motivates them to stay healthy on their own.
Yeah,
Thoughts on that?
one thing we're even exploring, which we found out our insurance does have a little bit more coverage than I anticipated that we do with massage therapy, chiropractic, and then acupuncture. So a little bit more, I guess, holistic approaches to wellness instead of going, especially with the strenuous work that they're doing, going and to the urgent care and getting prescribed some sort of medication when it's like, well, maybe if they went and got, stretch out the chiropractor, took another approach to it, they wouldn't have the difficulties as long term.
Yeah, I love it. So if you have health insurance, look at your health insurance and make sure you start bragging about the benefits. And if you're in renewal, make sure you start pushing a little bit harder on your health insurance agents to say, no, I need more of this. We're paying a lot of money for this. I need more massage or whatever it might be in there. Here's a question for that you might have the answer to is, what's the first sign that like somebody's physically maxing out in a heavy duty role?
Something we've noticed, and I would say from my side, is kind of the lethargy that, or you know what word I'm trying to say. I don't
Yeah, lethargic. Yep.
Yeah. Like when you go to visit them on their job, you can kind of see just overall, it's kind of when you would see someone maybe with like mental health, like you're just like, oh my gosh, you are definitely struggling. Like it's kind of apparent when you've seen them over time on how they were acting, a year ago when they first started, or however long you've known them. And I think even a supervisor would be that person that would notice that the quickest.
Yeah, absolutely, because they're working right alongside them. And they might also start asking for extra breaks or swapping shifts. Or like you mentioned earlier, saying, hey, I hurt myself. Can I get on a different job, but not really doing it formally? I've also seen in construction and in manufacturing, as well as some other manual labor jobs, is they may start, missing routine tasks and even breaking their tools, dropping their tools. And so if tools start coming back damaged, they may have fallen. And they want to hide it from you because for whatever reason, I don't get this. I do get it, but it drives me crazy that people think that if they go on workers' comp, that they're going to get fired. Now, if some companies do that, they're bad companies, right?
Exactly. And even like my company, we pay for disability insurance, short term and long term. We don't make the employee pay for that, for the sense of like, please come to me so I can help you get medical attention and you get your part of your wages while you're off. Like, obviously, it's not an easy financial position to be in, but
Right.
we want to help you, and we want you to have at least one less thing off your plate while you're trying to address what you have going on.
Yeah, and in the big picture, disability insurance really isn't that expensive in the big picture. I mean,
Mhm.
it's cheaper than recruiting, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Or the workers' comp, depending on
Yeah,
what ends up happening there and how, deep it gets. So it's like,
yeah,
just pay for it. And like, even if they don't elect any benefits, we say like, we're automatically enrolling you in this, and they sign off on that. So it's like, it's just like a 401k. They don't mind as long as they just know it's there.
yeah, exactly. So, folks that are listening, I would definitely encourage you to be looking at your benefits. And then going back to the workers' comp conversation, letting your employees and your supervisors know, no, this workers' comp is here for you. Do not hide injuries. We will help you. And then if you do have health insurance and disability programs, letting them know, don't hide injuries. We're not going to terminate you. We want you to get better. And this is why we have this here for you. Because in the end, if they're hiding it and then it comes out later, it could end up being a big lawsuit and everything on both sides. So we don't want to go down that road. Listen, if you're in a safety sensitive industry, there's bound to be accidents. There's bound to be injuries. It is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it, but there is. We could train people how to be safe and making sure that they're not hiding anything. With that said, if you do not have a policy yet about fitness to duty or fitness for work, even without an injury, I would really, really encourage everybody to have those policies in your handbook, on your careers page, on your website, because Zoe, we know nobody reads the handbook, right?
Yeah, exactly. Even the stuff that we cover at orientation, because we have a 2-week orientation, it's like they have so much information. It's like you can't expect people to remember it.
Right. And remember that in any company, but definitely in a safety sensitive company, whether you have a young workforce, an older workforce, or a mix of both, you can still get audited by OSHA regarding safety. And, there's federal OSHA, and then a little less than half the states, but almost half the states have their own OSHA as well, and then their own ADA and all of that. So we want to make sure that, you're having a crystal clear paper trail showing consistency and non-discrimination towards older workers. So this is why I'm saying focus on ability and agility, not age. We want to make sure we're aiming for a balance between safety and burden. And at the same time, retaining this amazing talent that has worked for us, whether it's been 20 years or just a month. But if they're older and they have experience, I mean, we're all dying for that experience right now. We're begging for it. So let's put them into a role, even if they say, I'll come and work for you, but I can't be in a safety sensitive role. Maybe they could be on the training team.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that we've been talking about actually, is how can we just get since we have the training facilities, how can we get the employees in more frequently and then just pass on that knowledge if those individuals are willing to be in that capacity?
Yes, I love it. This has been just a great reminder to me to reach out to some of my companies, my clients that are safety sensitive. And folks, we have a lot of training on the Aurora Training Advantage website that can help you with this. So Zoe, thank you so much for being here today. How can our listeners reach out to you and connect?
Yeah, so probably the best way to reach me would be on LinkedIn. If you just search my first and last name, Zoe Ridenour, I'll come up. I also will give you my email and I also text. I'm not a big social media person. I don't have any other accounts, so LinkedIn's your only shot, or just email me.
Awesome. I'll make sure that I put your LinkedIn profile in the podcast notes. And just to wrap up, everybody, remember, focus on ability, not age. If the entire program, your safety program, your fitness to duty programs is framed around, can you do the job safely? That's how you're going to be non-discriminatory. Do not be talking about people's age. You want to make sure you're protecting yourself from discrimination claims and then protecting your employees from safety issues and workers' comp issues as well. Take care, everybody. I hope this has been helpful.
Thanks for having us.